There are moments in life that split time into before and after. For Robert Mitchell, that moment came on a Tuesday morning at 72 years old, standing in his kitchen, holding a cup of coffee that had gone cold. He wasn't supposed to be home. For 50 years, Robert had been a man of schedules, of meetings, of importance. Vice President of Operations at a Fortune 500 company, corner office, reserved parking spot with his name on it. The kind of career that made relatives nod approvingly at family gatherings. But 3 months earlier, he'd retired, and in those 3 months, something inside him had begun to crack. The morning it happened, Robert was staring at his phone, scrolling through photos his daughter had sent from her vacation in Costa Rica. She was 46 now. In the pictures, she was laughing with her husband and 2 teenage kids, faces lit up by sunset on some beach he'd never heard of. He couldn't remember the last time he'd seen her laugh like that in person. Actually, he could. He just didn't want to. It was at her wedding, 17 years ago. He'd arrived late because of a merger negotiation, missed the ceremony, made it just in time for the reception, still wearing his power tie, still checking his BlackBerry under the table. Robert set down his phone and looked around his kitchen. Marble countertops, professional-grade appliances, everything gleaming and barely used. His wife, ex-wife now, for 12 years, used to joke that the kitchen was just for show. She stopped joking about it around the time she stopped joking about everything else. The house was silent. It was always silent now, and that's when the thought came, uninvited and devastating. I won everything I was supposed to win. So why does it feel like I lost everything that mattered? Let me take you back to understand how Robert got here. Because his story isn't unique, it's just honest. And if you're breathing, there's a chance you'll see yourself somewhere in these words. Robert grew up in Ohio in the 1950s, the son of a factory worker who broke his back for 37 years and had nothing to show for it but a pension that barely covered groceries. Young Robert watched his father come home every night, exhausted and defeated, and made himself a promise: "That will never be me." So he studied, he worked, he climbed. Every promotion was proof he was doing it right. Every raise was validation. When his father died at 63, just 2 years after retiring, Robert was 31 and already making more money than his father had earned in his entire lifetime. At the funeral, someone said, "Your dad would be so proud of you." Robert believed that was true. He believed success was the greatest form of love he could offer. To his parents' memory, to his wife, to his children. The lie was beautiful in its simplicity. If I provide enough, I've done enough. But here's what nobody tells you about lies. They don't reveal themselves all at once. They unravel slowly, thread by thread, until one day you're standing in your kitchen at 72, and you realize the fabric of your entire life has been held together by something that was never real. Before we go further, I want to ask you something. Have you ever believed a lie about what success really means? Drop a comment below and share what you thought success was when you were younger and whether you still believe that now. Your story might be exactly what someone else needs to hear today. Robert spent that entire Tuesday replaying his life like a film he'd seen but never really watched. He remembered his son's little league games, the ones he missed because of client dinners. His son had been a decent pitcher. Robert knew this because his wife told him, not because he'd seen it. By the time Robert had more time to attend, his son had quit baseball, said it wasn't fun anymore. He remembered his daughter's college graduation. He'd been there physically, but his mind was stuck on a deal that was falling apart. She'd given a speech as valedictorian. Everyone said it was beautiful. Robert couldn't remember a single word of it. What he remembered was checking his email during the ceremony and feeling relieved when she didn't notice, or maybe she did notice. Maybe that's why she moved to Seattle immediately after graduating, 2,000 miles away from his Connecticut estate. For decades, Robert told himself he was building something valuable, building security, building a legacy. And he was just not the kind of legacy you can put in a portfolio. The hardest memories were the quiet ones. The Saturday mornings his wife would suggest a walk, and he'd say he had work to finish. The family vacations he'd shorten because he couldn't be away from the office that long. The time his teenage daughter came to him crying about something that happened at school, and he'd given her a 15-minute pep talk before taking a conference call treating her pain like an item on his agenda. She never came to him with a problem again. His wife filed for divorce when Robert was 60. She'd written him a letter, can you imagine? They lived in the same house, and she wrote him a letter because she said having an actual conversation with him had become impossible. One line from that letter haunted him. You were always planning the next thing, never present for this thing. And I became just another thing. At the time, Robert thought she was being dramatic. He bought her a beautiful condo as part of the settlement and told himself he'd been generous. Now, standing in his silent kitchen, he understood. She wasn't asking for more. She was asking for him. The man underneath the title, the human behind the ambition. And he'd never shown up. If this story is hitting you somewhere deep, do me a favor, hit that like button. Not for me, but as a marker for yourself. A little reminder that you watched something today that made you think. That you paused to consider what really matters after that Tuesday morning revelation. Robert did something he hadn't done in 50 years. He sat with the discomfort instead of drowning it in productivity. He spent the next few days just ... thinking, walking, remembering. He thought about his old colleague Martin, who turned down a promotion 20 years ago because it would meant relocating and missing his kid's senior year of high school. At the time, Robert thought Martin was soft, weak, lacking ambition. Martin died 5 years ago. Robert went to the funeral. The church was packed, standing room only. Martin's 3 kids spoke, each one with a story that made the entire congregation laugh and cry. His grandchildren performed a song he'd taught them. His wife of 48 years could barely speak through her tears, but managed to say, "He was the best man I ever knew." Robert's funeral flashed before his eyes. Who would come? What would they say? Would his kids' voices crack with genuine grief? Or would they deliver polite, distant eulogies about a man who provided well but was never really there? That thought didn't just hurt, it hollowed him out. But Robert was a man of action. Always had been. And even at 72, even broken open like this, he wasn't going to just sit with the pain. He was going to do something about it. He called his daughter. It was a Wednesday afternoon, she'd be at work, he reasoned, so she probably wouldn't answer. But she did. "Dad, is everything okay?" Even her first question assumed something must be wrong for him to call midday. When had he become the father who only called when something was wrong? "Everything's fine," he said. Then, after a pause that felt like jumping off a cliff, "Actually, no, nothing's fine. Can we talk?" They talked for 2 hours. Robert actually cried for the first time since his father's funeral 41 years earlier. He apologized for things he'd never apologized for missing her childhood while being physically present, for treating her accomplishments like bullet points instead of miracles, for being a provider instead of a father. His daughter cried too. She told him about the years of therapy, the Father's Day cards she'd written and thrown away, the times she'd wanted to call him but convinced herself he was too busy. The wedding he'd been late for. She admitted she'd delayed the ceremony by 20 minutes, hoping he'd make it, then started without him, humiliated and heartbroken. "I kept telling myself, you showed love differently," she said. "That providing was your way of caring. But Dad, I didn't need a provider. I needed you." Those words could have destroyed him. Instead, they rebuilt him. "I know," Robert said. "And I'm so sorry I didn't understand that until now. But I understand it now. And I know I can't get back the time. But can I be present for the time that's left?" There was silence. Then, quietly, "I'd like that." Robert flew to Seattle the following week. He stayed for 10 days. He met his grandkids. Really met them. Asked them questions. Learned their personalities. He cooked breakfast every morning. He played board games. He listened to his son-in-law's stories about his work and actually cared about the details. On his last night, his 15-year-old grandson asked, "Grandpa, why didn't you visit more before?" Robert could have made excuses. Could have said he was busy. That work demanded a lot. Instead, he said, "Because I believed a lie. I thought success meant achieving things, building things, winning things. And I was so busy winning, I forgot to live. Don't make the same mistake I did." His grandson nodded, processing this, then said, "Well, I'm glad you're here now. Those 6 words were worth more than every promotion Robert had ever received. Listen, if you've made it this far, you're exactly the kind of person I create these videos for, someone who's willing to look at hard truths and still show up. Do me a favor and subscribe to this channel. Because we're rebuilding something here, a community of people who are unafraid to question what we've been taught and discover what's actually true. Hit that subscribe button, and let's keep having these conversations together. Robert is 74 now. He visits Seattle every other month. He calls his kids weekly, not to report on his life, but to ask about theirs. He's learning to be a grandfather in real time, which is humbling and beautiful, and nothing like being an executive. He reconnected with his son, too. That took longer, and it's still a work in progress. Some wounds need more time, but they're talking, they're trying. That's something. Robert sold the big house last year. Too many rooms, he said. Too many echoes. He bought a small condo near his daughter. His ex-wife, they're friendly now. They meet for coffee sometimes. She told him recently, "You seem like a different person." "I think I'm the same person," Robert replied. "I'm just finally showing up as him." The biggest lie Robert believed his entire life wasn't about money. It wasn't even about success. The lie was this: later is guaranteed. There will be time. You can always circle back to what matters after you've achieved enough. But later isn't guaranteed. And enough is a horizon that keeps moving. And by the time you circle back, the people you love might have learned to live without you. Here's what Robert wants you to know, and what I want you to know. It's not too late. It's never too late to wake up, to see clearly, to choose differently. Maybe you're 45 and climbing hard, convinced that just one more promotion will finally feel like enough. Maybe you're 60 and retired, wondering where everyone went. Maybe you're 75 and thinking it's too late to change anything. It's not too late. The relationships waiting for you aren't somewhere in the future after you've accomplished more. They're here now. The people who want to know you really know you. They're already in your life. They're just wondering if you'll ever let them in. Robert says the strangest thing about waking up from the lie is that the life he has, now smaller, quieter, less impressive on paper, feels infinitely richer than the life he had before. Fewer square feet, fewer zeros in the bank, fewer people impressed by his title, but more laughter, more presence, more love, more of what actually matters. That's the truth that replaced the lie. What matters isn't what you achieved, it's who you became, and how you made people feel, and whether you really showed up for the brief, beautiful moments that make up a life. Robert spent 72 years believing the biggest lie. He's spending however many years he has left living the biggest truth. The question is, which one are you living right now? And more importantly, are you willing to answer that question honestly? Because the moment you do, that's when everything changes.